Hey guys, alright, so um, I'm gonna take you guys back to an author that I've discussed before, and tonight we are looking at The Last Theorem by Arthur C. Clarke and Frederik Pohl. Now, this is a very interesting book. It was published in 2008 and got kind of a mixed reception. Didn't do very well at first, but it seems to have gathered something of a following. Personally, I thought it was a very and I would definitely read it, especially like Arthur Clarke fans. But yeah, so the story follows. Well, there are kind of two different stories here. We've got a race of aliens that have detected some sort of nuclear testing stuff, and they kind of get a little bit freaked out about this, and of course the decision is made to exterminate the people of Earth, right? Now of course the other storyline is a young mathematician who, through some or other method, solves a 300-year-old mathematics problem. This what's it called now? I just want to see what this. I can't. I don't know what it's called. It might be in the appendices here. Let me see. Fermat's Last Theorem. There we go. And this, of course, kind of shoots him into superstardom. Now, of course, things are kind of a little bit confusing, because at one point you've got aliens that kind of come down and they sort of calm everybody down, because you've got like a war that's brewing and stuff like that. It's a very good book. The plot is a little bit all over the place, but apples and oranges, I say. Anyway, yeah. I basically just described the plot. So I don't want to give too much. I did a written review of this book about a week or so ago, and that's kind of where all the spoilers are. So if you want like the review, I'll put them in the description. I don't want to do too much in it, because I mean this is a book that I think everybody should read. It's a book that, I mean, you're confused. It does confuse you sometimes, but at the end of it all, it is well worth reading. And this was, I believe this was just after Arthur Clarke passed. This was the last book that Clarke was able to work on, and in fact, when the final draft was finished, he actually he went through this the draft of the novel just a few before he passed away. If this is the book that he clear with, then I mean, wow. Pros and cons. I mean, the characters are all likable. The story is interesting and well executed. It is a bit more science fiction-y than Ghost from the Grand Banks, which was the first Arthur Clarke novel that I reviewed. So yeah, in general, I didn't really have that many problems with it. There were two different authors working on this book, and a lot of people who reviewed the book were critical of that, because a lot of them were saying, oh, well, it's disjointed, it doesn't really fit. I didn't really notice it. I have to be honest, I didn't really notice it. I thought that it flowed very well. Some stuff, you can kind of tell when it's Arthur Clarke and when it's Frederik Pohl that's writing, but for the most part, it flows together really well, and you don't really notice the difference. It's only if you're actively looking for differences between the two authors that you will genuinely see it. I liked how everything was established, if that makes sense. A lot of the time, I've read novels, like sci-fi novels, where things just happen, and there's no build-up, there's no foreshadowing, there's no setup for it. It just happens, and that doesn't occur here at all. The story is far more tightly knit than Ghost from the Grand Banks was. It's far more interesting. It's better executed, in my opinion. And for comparison's sake, let me give you an idea of just how much I enjoyed this one. Ghost to the Grand Banks is far shorter a novel than this one. Okay, that book took me close to a month to finish. Okay, and that was reading at home, reading on car trips, and reading on my breaks when I was working. Okay, so when I was working the parcel counter on the weekends, or when I was eating lunch at the canteen with the grocery store where I was working. I would stick that book in my back pocket, in the back pocket of my jeans, and I'd walk around, go about my business, do what I needed to do. When I went on break, I was reading. When I was, in a car trip, to visit family, I was reading. And that took me a month to finish. With all of that. In fact, it actually took me close to 2, maybe 3 months to finish that, if I remember correctly. This took me 2 weeks. Around about 2 weeks to finish this book. And this book is, if we exclude the preambles, this is a little over 400 pages. It's 411 pages. More than double the size. This is twice as long as Ghost from the Grand Banks. And I finished it in a little over 2 weeks, roundabouts. So, if that doesn't give you an idea of how engrossing and how interesting this book is, then I honestly don't know what will. Would I recommend it? Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are some things here that are a little much for young readers. I don't think I would recommend this for young kids. But I don't think that was necessarily the target audience either. So that's kind of a moot point. But I think even teenagers can read this. There's nothing wrong with it. There is some sexual content here, but I mean it's handled very maturely. It's not graphic in any way. And overall, I think if teenagers have a problem reading it, I think it's probably going to come out of the fact that Arthur Clarke likes to go into detail. I mean, there is an exceptional amount of detail in the world that he and Pohl have corrected, created here in the last theorem. And yeah, it can be read by teenagers. I think with relative ease. I think the details, it might be a little bit daunting sometimes, but it's not daunting to the point where you have to grind your teeth to get through it. So yeah, if you're an Arthur Clarke fan and you haven't read this, it's definitely worth reading, so definitely check it out. If you've never read an Arthur Clarke novel in your life and you kind of want to get started, this is a good one to start with, in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this. I might actually revisit this book at a later time in another video. I don't think so, but maybe I will. So yeah, those were my thoughts. If you have read this book, please let me know what you thought of it. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.